Okay, let's get right into it. When you hear Bitcoin, your mind probably jumps straight to digital gold, right? Something you buy, you hold, and you hope it goes up. But what if I told you that's just the tip of the iceberg? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you a whole hidden universe that's been built on top of Bitcoin. One that's turning it from a simple asset into a full-blown financial powerhouse.
And look, this isn't some tiny niche corner of the web anymore. We're talking about more than 300 million people around the world holding Bitcoin. This thing has gone way beyond a few tech geeks in a basement. It's a global movement with individuals, huge companies, and even governments all getting a piece of the action.
So, what's the big shift? Well, Bitcoin started with this really elegant, revolutionary idea, a peer-to-peer way to send money without a bank. But it's evolved into something so much bigger. Now, it's one of the top 4 decentralized finance, or DeFi, ecosystems in the world. The key takeaway here? Bitcoin is no longer just for sending cash. It's become the foundation for a brand new financial system. To really get our heads around this, here's the game plan. First, we'll unpack what BTCFi is all about. Then, we're going to meet the multi-billion-dollar players making waves in this space. After that, we'll uncover who the real Bitcoin whales are today. And we'll wrap it all up with the final, dramatic countdown for the very last Bitcoin. All right, first up, the rise of BTCFi. You got to be asking, how did Bitcoin, a network that's famously kind of slow and basic, manage to build its own complex financial system? It seems impossible, right?
Well, it all boils down to this one term, BTCFi. It's short for Bitcoin Finance. And all it really means is an entire ecosystem of financial apps built right on top of the Bitcoin protocol, with Bitcoin itself as the core asset. So think of it like a whole new floor of financial services built on the super secure foundation of Bitcoin's original blockchain.
So how did they pull this off technically? Well, the original Bitcoin network has its limits, so clever developers built new layers on top of it. First, you've got layer 2s, which are like express lanes on the highway, making transactions super fast and cheap. Then came sidechains, which are like specialized workshops off to the side, where you can do more complex stuff, like smart contracts. And the newest piece of the puzzle is restaking, which lets you use your Bitcoin to secure all these new layers and earn rewards for it. These 3 things are the literal building blocks of this whole new world. And what does that actually mean for you, the Bitcoin holder? It means your Bitcoin doesn't have to just sit there anymore. You can actually put it to work. You can lend it out and earn interest, kind of like a bank. You can help secure networks by staking it to get rewards. You can trade on decentralized exchanges, and you can even go yield farming to hunt for the best returns. All this stuff was pure science fiction for Bitcoin just a few years ago, and now it's happening every day. So these building blocks didn't just create a few cool features, they created a genuine multi-billion-dollar world. So let's go meet the main players, shall we? And when I say multi-billion, I am not kidding. As of July 2025, the total value locked, that's the amount of capital actually deposited and working inside this ecosystem, is a massive $6.93 billion. To give you some perspective, that puts it right on the heels of the well-known BNB Smart Chain. Bitcoin is officially a heavyweight contender in the DeFi arena. And here are the projects driving all that value. You can see there's a whole mix of services. Babylona Protocol is absolutely crushing it in restaking. Lombard Finance is big in liquid staking. You've got Threshold, which acts as a critical bridge to other blockchains. And even the classic Lightning Network is still a huge player for simple payments. It's a really diverse and competitive field. But let's be totally clear here. There is one 800-pound gorilla in the room. That's Babylon Protocol. It accounts for nearly 3/4 of the entire ecosystem's value. Its focus on restaking has obviously struck a major chord with investors. You just can't talk about BTCFi without talking about Babylon's massive dominance. Okay, so we've covered the tech and we've covered the money. Now let's talk about the people. Who are these new Bitcoin whales? In this new era, who actually owns the supply? You know, the answer here is probably not what you think. A lot of people assume that big corporations and governments have swooped in and bought it all up. But the data? It tells a completely different story. Individual investors, that's everyday people, hold about 14 million Bitcoin. That absolutely dwarfs what public companies and governments hold combined. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This comes from a report by the company River. They put it in black and white.
individual investors control around 14 million BTC, approximately 70% of the total supply. So that whole narrative about a few suits in a boardroom controlling Bitcoin, it's just not the full picture. The power is way more spread out than most people realize.
Now, that's not to say the corporations aren't here. Oh, they are here. You've got the ultimate Bitcoin bull, Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, sitting on a hoard of almost 600,000 BTC. You have major crypto-native companies like the Miners Marathon and Riot. And then you have names you definitely know, like Robinhood and, of course, Tesla, which is still holding a nice chunk. The institutions have definitely arrived at the party.
And all of this, it brings us to our final and maybe most powerful section, the final Bitcoin countdown. This is a story all about extreme, hard-coded digital scarcity. Okay, let's start the clock. Right now, there are 19.89 million Bitcoin in existence. Now remember, the absolute maximum, the hard cap, is 21 million. That's it, forever. That means we are almost at 95% of every single Bitcoin that will ever be created. The end of the new supply is literally in sight.
But here's where it gets really crazy. Out of all those coins that exist, about 15.3 million of them are held by long-term investors. These are the diamond hands, the people who haven't touched their coins in a very, very long time. They are holding, not selling. That takes a massive portion of the supply completely off the open market. So if you take all the coins that have ever been mined, and you subtract all the coins that are probably lost forever, and then you subtract all the coins being held by those long-term investors, what's actually left to trade? You get this just a jaw-dropping number. It's estimated that only about 1 million Bitcoin are actually in active circulation on exchanges. That's all. A tiny sliver of the total supply. And this leads us to the final billion-dollar question. You have this brand new, dynamic financial world being built on Bitcoin, which is driving demand way up. And at the exact same time, you have over 95% of the supply already mined and gone, with most of what's left locked away. So, who is going to compete for that last tiny 5%? Individuals? Institutions? Governments? That right there is the fundamental tension that's going to define Bitcoin's next chapter.